For Pacifica Radio, I'm Christina Onnested. The House passed a sweeping debt ceiling and budget cuts package last night to avoid a national default. The vote was 314 to 117. Dozens of progressives and 71 Republicans voted against it. Progressives blasted the work requirements for food and cash aid and other provisions, while Republicans who voted no said cuts weren't severe enough. Republican House Speaker Kevin McCarthy hailed it as a Republican success.
They said only thing they would do is just raise the debt limit. Well, now they voted for work requirements. Now they just voted to put PAYGO on on all of our president, that he can't go create a new regulation or others without cutting before that. They now just capped spending for 1% for the next 6 years. I can think of all sorts of more bills I'm going to bring to the floor because they just said now they'd vote for it.
Ultimately, more Democrats voted for the legislation than Republicans. Christopher Martinez reports.
Compared to the original Republican proposal, the Compromise Fiscal Responsibility Act limits spending cuts to a cap through 2025, though the cuts still fall largely on the most vulnerable. Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid were taken off the table, and work requirements for federal benefits were limited. And the debt limit, that was extended into 2025, crucially after the 2024 presidential elections. Catherine Clark of Massachusetts is the House Democratic whip.
House Democrats are very clear. There is no perfect negotiation when you are the victims of extortion. Nobody likes to pay a ransom note, and that's exactly what tonight's vote is. Our payment on the ransom of the American people.
Reporting for Pacifica Radio News KPFA, I'm Christopher Martinez.
It now goes to the Senate, where it also faces scrutiny. Senator Bernie Sanders warned yesterday he couldn't vote for it.
At a time of massive wealth and income inequality, at a time when the people on top have never had it so good, while the middle class shrinks and millions of working class families live in desperation, I cannot in good conscience vote for a bill that takes vital nutrition assistance away from women, infants, children, and seniors, while refusing to ask billionaires to start paying their fair share of taxes.
Overall, the 99-page bill is projected to reduce the deficit by $1.5 trillion without rolling back Trump-era tax breaks on the wealthy. The package also greenlights the Mountain Valley Pipeline, guts funding for the IRS, and bolsters funding for defense and veterans. The Senate is expected to pass it by the end of the week. The U.S. is projected to default on its debt and be unable to pay its bills by Monday, June 5th. Ukrainian officials say the latest pre-dawn Russian missile attack on Kiev killed at least 3 people today, including a 9-year-old child and her mother. Ukrainian air defenses shot down 10 cruise and ballistic missiles launched by the Kremlin forces, but falling debris caused damage and casualties on the ground, wounding 16 other people. Today, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky pressed for NATO membership.
In the full power of our unity, we do see who the aggressor is, and we see where the aggression is taking place. Russia is afraid of NATO and its truth, and tries to swallow only those who are outside of the common security space.
Meanwhile, President Joe Biden has approved a new package of military aid for Ukraine that totals up to $300 million and includes additional munitions for drones and an array of other weapons. It comes as unmanned aircraft have targeted Moscow. Here's White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby.
We have communicated privately to the Ukrainians as recently as last week or so, that we don't want to see U.S. supplied equipment used to strike inside Russia, that we don't support attacks inside Russia, and that we are not going to change our policy about not enabling or encouraging those attacks.
John Kirby. South Africa is granting diplomatic immunity to Russia's President Vladimir Putin so he can attend this summer's BRICS gathering. It's the gathering of leaders from Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. That means Putin can travel to the nation without fear of arrest, since the International Criminal Court has an arrest warrant for him for war crimes related to the war in Ukraine. South Africa is a signatory to the ICC. NATO's ramping up pressure on its member Turkey to drop objections to Sweden's membership. The military organization is also looking at boosting Ukraine's non-member status in the alliance and preparing a framework for security commitments it can offer once the war with Russia is over. Immigrant rights advocates are rallying in at least 7 states today for a day without immigrants, sparked by Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' immigration bill that he signed into law earlier this month that makes it a felony to bring an undocumented immigrant into the state, rolls back IDs, and cracks down on hiring practices. Stores across the state are also expected to close. A day without immigrant actions are also planned in other states, including California, Colorado, Illinois, and Texas. I'm Christina Onnested reporting for Pacifica Radio.